right, yeah, there are a few buttons on here. So I imagine it's the big green one, Phil? Okay. For those that don't know me, it's very bright up here. My name is Phil Watson. I am a software architect that specializes in the front-end space. I have a background in full stack, but more recently I switched over into the front-end space because I have a passion for design, and I really think that impacting the users is where I wanted to be in my profession. So I've worked in both large and small companies like Yahoo, to be one of the bigger ones, and then I've worked for a large amount of TMCs. For those that don't know it, it's travel management companies, just like Navan. And let me just tell you that the industry is ramped for the takeover. There is way too much tech debt. Basically, the whole industry is built on a fax machine called the GDS. And I won't get into detail about that, but from my perspective, I love how things work. I am obsessed with making governance an important side of the front-end development architecture. Woo. All right, so today we're gonna be talking about who Navan is. We're also gonna talk about front-end ecosystems, where we are. We're gonna go into the enterprise adoption and simplifying the migration. We also have a case study, and then we're gonna head into moving forward and what Navan is planning to do in the short term and in the long term. All right, so recently we just rebranded to TripActions, or from TripActions to Navan. This was a big undertaking. As you know, a company of our size, which is now almost $10 billion, we have a wide range of suites and platforms that we deliver our services. So if anybody's been through redesign, they know the tech debt that's incurred during that process. Me personally, I've been through about 7 rebrands, and I didn't expect to do one right coming into this company. I was 2 months in and they said, hey, we want to go ahead and do a rebrand. Like, wait, what? Please don't give me that. But anyway, it went off smooth, but this is one of those things that large companies do. They move extremely fast and they want to get stuff done. Most companies that are startups, they end up turning into an enterprise, but they incur tech debt during the time. And this is no different from Navan, a small startup. Most of these companies, they focus on driving the company forward, and then they focus on the back end. All right, so let's actually talk a little bit about what Navan does. Navan does a very special thing for the industry. They have been actively disrupting the industry for about 8 years. They question every status quo across the board, which is one of those things that actively brought me to them. If you go out to any of the partners, you use Expensify, Concur, if you're integrating with Sabre, we want to go all around that completely. Break the mold, tear it all down, rebuild it from scratch. Let's start a new trend of making booking travel not stressful and just leave the stresses for travelers, because traveling is not fun, let's be honest. All right, so here is a graph about how we've been scaling. You can see a small little dip when COVID took place, but basically we've been exploding for the last six years. And with this comes our feature development lifecycle. Most of the requests, both large and small companies, they go through feature development and they build extremely fast, and it accrues a lot of tech debt along the way. So when requests come in, you quickly find out that supporting customers, adapting to business landscapes, breaking in new verticals, these aren't engineering needs. These are what the company focuses on so that it can continue to grow. And this doesn't always align with engineering. As we can see here, we have a couple of examples of how it looks in the difference between engineering and product. And you can talk to any person here that's ever tried to make a change at an enterprise. It is always the same thing, and this is the biggest problem with pushing new technology stacks into a well-established company or a late-stage startup. So from the product perspective, you can see shipping features, design parity, fast releases. Engineers, So from the product side and the sales side, it's all about money, which is great. That's how we have jobs. That's the way we want it to be. But engineers, they focus on saving jobs. They want to save money. They don't want to go ahead and cost more money, and it's not always seen in parity. Saving money is not the same as making money, but we have to go ahead and push this forward. So majority of the changes happen in an isolated team across the organization, going in different verticals, in different directions. And this is the grassroots movement that every single person I've talked with has problems with. I mean, even at Yahoo, it was, 35 years of technology stacks, and it was all over the place. Same thing with our smaller companies that we deal with. So we're gonna pivot now into what the front-end landscapes looks like right now. So I gave you a moment on this slide because a lot of people, the decision makers on companies, they realize that, hey, you guys are creating JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Cool, go do it. That's not what we think about on a day-to-day basis. This is a very small snapshot of what we do and what we think about regularly. So when they say, oh, create a new project, go ahead and spin it up. Oh, cool, yeah, I can have React up and running in 5 minutes, but what about all the rest? And you try to explain this to them, this is normal. But how do we go ahead and decouple companies to understand this and not only understand it, but give you the ability to make these shifts? And this is something that is a long-going issue. It's not company-specific. This is across the board. And I'm going to keep reiterating that because it's important for decision makers to know that we actually do a lot more than you actually see. Actually, it's not the problem, because the problem is a lot bigger. So when you have a large company, you don't have one project. You have 500 projects. And they all have different repos, they all have different patterns, they have all different flavors, they have different versions. So how can you change this? And how can you change it effectively within a governed ecosystem? These systems are defined. They may not be perfect, but that's what they know, and they do not want to change. So how do you give them an out? And that's the hard part. Every single salesperson in here, whether you're an agency, you're Netlify, you need to find that decision maker that understands this problem as a whole, and you also need to find that person that can give you the ability to transition a company into the new tech space with ease, with limiting the impact that it has on their customers and increases ROI. So the company first decides, hey, all right, well, let's refactor everything. I don't know about that. So who else is doing this? What can we do? How can we take some heavy lifting off of what's currently been delivered? I can consider this kind of like Amazon Cloud. We've heard about this from previous speakers, but do we really want to create a front-end cloud and manage it? Probably not. And we're all here because we know that. Duh. The next piece is, all right, well, let's go ahead and build it. In an example, about 6 months ago, I was tired of serving from ECR. I didn't like Docker containers. I didn't like serving them from Docker containers. So I decided to build a little bootstrap project. I spent 2 days on it. I got it out in S3, put it in front of the CloudFront, said, hey, look it, I deployed in 6 seconds. They're like, what? Are you kidding me? Simple. The web is not as complex as it needs to be, but a lot of people need to learn about how you can change the habits and let them understand that these POCs can be vision. But this is something that I don't want to maintain. Did I provide cloud functions? Did I provide, edge functions? Did I do proxies? Did I do environmental variables? No, I didn't want to handle all that. I just wanted to put some static files on a CDN and give them to the client. So we actually went through a 6-month audit, and I may be sharing a little bit too much, but look at the feature comparison. This is pretty astounding to see what you get out of the box from Netlify. And yes, there are some pieces missing, but they're a partner and they work with us extremely well, giving us the ability to push them that give us also some feedback about what we can do better. And that's what I love about the partnership with them. So with the combination of CI/CD, we ended up landing on a flavor of GitHub Actions and Netlify. Coming back to what we had discussed before, you need to give the enterprise a off-ramp. And this is a perfect quote to discuss that off-ramp. I was going to have one of my coworkers run up with a turtleneck on this, but we'll leave that. All right, so we signed a contract with Netlify. It was something that was very long coming because they've been a client of us and a partner for a very long time, but they didn't have all of our business. We were focusing on the client website for a long time, which is our public-facing Navan.com, but we have a massive amount of internal tools that needed to be enhanced. But we also suffer from the monolithic approach that we've been hearing so much about. We have large code bases, we have some older versions, and we need an ability to break those apart. But did I want to go through setting up Docker containers, set up the infrastructure, set up the release pipelines for all of these individual applications that I plan to build to decouple these large monoliths? No. So we signed the contract. We now know how we're going to do it. So let's say, what are we going to do? Oh, wrong button. So these were the requirements for our migration. We wanted to make sure it was gradual. We wanted to go environment by environment. We also wanted to ensure that it was application by application. Teams could move at their own pace. We wanted to have a rollback strategy, and with Netlify, you know that that's pretty much guaranteed. But we were hosting asynchronously. So you deploy, we go both directions, we choose where we want that traffic to go. Great. We wanted developer ease of use, which means if you needed to migrate, you could do it, and you can do it easy. We also wanted this to be composable, because not every CI pipeline or deployment mechanism is all the same. They have different flavors, they have different needs, so we wanted to make it composable workflow jobs, so on and so forth. We also wanted to create some form of base standard for the CI/CD piece. We needed to go ahead and ship new fast apps. We needed mono repo support, and then documentation, observability, security, compliance are utmost. Enterprise needs all of this. So the way that we went ahead and did it is, if anybody's familiar with GitHub Actions, very simple, out-of-the-box solution, has a very robust open marketplace. You can also have self-hosted runners, which we're currently using, and you also have the ability to do shared composite actions as well as shared workflows. You can also go ahead and build your own JavaScript workflows for anything more complex. And we landed kind of in the middle. So here is an example of two of our workflows. The one on the left is our development workflow, and this is normally when you merge a PR against the default branch. And it's going to run, your typical tests. It's going to run your lints. You have an optional build command. You can go ahead and do some linting, other features like that. And then you have your release. And all that this release is doing is just saying, hey, let's go ahead and run the full suite, and then we'll move on, go ahead and tag that, and then Netlify will pick that up and deploy it. But from a user's perspective, they don't need to go into Jenkins anymore. They don't need to look at those massive logs and search, and all of a sudden their browser crashes because there's way too much text on the page. So we broke this up into 5 different workflows. First one being compliance, development, maintenance, security, and release. And all of these are into a shared repository that we manage on a versioning basis. So anytime we needed to add, let's say we wanted to enforce commit linting, which we currently do, we add it to our compliance workflow. everybody gets it for free, and that's standard. The next thing, let's go ahead and say that we want to do some more security checks. We have a security checks. We just actually implemented the maintenance workflow. This maintenance workflow cleans up any stale branches or PRs, and this increased all of our pipelines exponentially because instead of having 500 different open branches anytime we do a fetch all, we have 15. That download instant. So let's look under the hood a little bit more. So compliance, so everything in green you see here is more about the PR level. We have a security that is run against different standards depending on the user's input, and then we have a maintenance workflow which is scheduled. All of these we can tap into at any given point. But what we're highlighting here is once you go ahead and implement this 15 lines of code into your repository, you get everything on the right for free. Everything comes with it. How can you not go to every developer team in your organization and say, I don't have time to put 15 lines of code in? Like, what? We're doing everything for you. Everything is heavy lifted is done. You just have to go ahead and put this in. We'll schedule the migration for you. So what this allows us to do is give the developers more time to focus on what's important and give them more creativity to introduce newer patterns, newer frameworks, test out technologies, less about everything else and more about what makes the company more productive and ship features faster. And I had a little asterisk at the bottom because we can tap into any one of these workflows at any point, increment a version change, everyone gets it. Or if they don't want it, fine, compose it the way you want to. So let's go ahead and talk about Navan expense. This was one of our first migrations that we did with Netlify. We have been in the contract for, I would say, maybe 4 months now, and we've successfully launched about 35% of our sites. We have one large monolith repo to break apart that will be coming soon, but this was our first big one that we did. A little bit about this application. So this application is hosted in one repository. It is based around NX framework. So you have applications, libraries, end-to-end apps. And there's 7 apps. There's 10 libs. There's 4 end-to-end test suites. And all of this code base is big. You have interdependency nightmares across the board. So when we run the affected suite, we found that, oh my gosh, we have to rebuild every single application every single time. Okay, great. We need time to refactor that. Good. Okay. But what we were able to do very quickly was this application had been set up on Jenkins and it was not optimized to its full potential. So within a matter of about 2.5, 3 weeks, we had our deploy previews done in 1 day. We had all of our staging environments set up in about 2 weeks. And then we fully migrated prod. In 2 days, we did 10% of the traffic. Then the next day, we did 50% of our traffic. And then we did a full cutover. There was 0 downtime, and we saw a bump in the CDN performance around 5 to 7%. We also moved from scheduled releases of 2 times a week to full CI/CD. We also increased the pipeline, was around 2.5 hours, 2 hours, somewhere around there, down to about 30 minutes. So this was extremely beneficial for the team, the cadence, the project managers, and the developers. They feel confident about merging to master, and everything goes out according to plan. So moving forward, this can allow feature developers, or ICs, to focus on feature development, create new project, optimizing the code base. It takes away everything else. They have the ability to ship faster. They have the ability to focus on what's important, and they can explore. We don't want developers focusing on small things, and they don't have enough tools in their tool belt. And Netlify has that, and we all know that. That's why we're here. We can focus on giving the innovation back to the ICs. All right, so some of our favorite features. Build speed. Dana, the caching, we're gonna talk about it, because I love it. I want everything built over there, like just take everything. We'll get there. Unlimited environments. This is a new concept to our developers. And it's been great because we can talk about the deploy previews, we can talk about branch deploys, we can do bug bashes at our anytime we want. The Netlify drawer. We have less splits in our shared environments because of this directly. You no longer have to push it up, have an account manager look at it, and then send it back, and then you have another PR that just fixes a typo. We can do dedicated things in a PR, and they can work on it. The CLI has so much potential, but I love the fact that we can deploy locally for it. No more dedicated proxies for that environment, no more dedicated environmental variables. You can use the CLI to go ahead and run your dev builds, and you don't have that extra initial setup. Click once rollbacks gives you that guaranteed scalability to trust what you're putting out in production. And then obviously the partnership. The partnership is huge because you need to be able to trust that these guys are gonna follow what they believe in, which is open source. And that's another thing that we love about this company. They follow the standards to give you the ability to make the valuable choices that you want. So some of the key takeaways. I'll try and wrap this up soon. Netlify has enabled me to make a bigger impact at my organization. I could not have shifted or pivoted our company to move towards more modern frameworks, better CI infrastructure, and better tooling for our developers without this. The developers can move faster. They have a standard way. We feel happy with the security and compliance around it. We can tap into the CI cycle at any time we want, and we're bringing innovation back to the developers. This enables us to hire top talent much faster. If you go ahead and handcuff your developers in your current architecture, you're not gonna get any talent. But by enabling them to use the latest and greatest, everyone's gonna wanna come work for you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Netlify. Glad to be here.